The fluorescent lights of the hospital flickered as I paced the waiting area, cradling my newborn daughter against my chest. I was exhausted but glowing with pride. My little girl Maya had only been in this world for 3 days, and already she was my reason to keep breathing. When the nurse called my name, I smiled politely and followed her into the exam room. She didn't smile back. In fact, she hadn't smiled since I arrived. Her eyes lingered on me and my baby with something colder than indifference. I felt it, disdain, judgment, maybe even hatred. But I kept my head high. I sat down carefully, adjusting Maya's blanket. "She's been feeding every 2 hours," I said softly. "But sometimes she—" Before I could finish, the nurse rolled her eyes. "You people never learn, do you? Babies need structure, not chaos." Her words stung, but I bit my lip. I wasn't going to let anyone ruin my joy. I just nodded and kissed Maya's forehead. But then, it happened. The nurse reached down to grab Maya's tiny arm roughly, as if she was an object, not a baby. My daughter whimpered, and I instinctively pulled her closer. That's when the nurse's hand flashed across my face. A sharp, shocking slap. The sound echoed in the sterile room. My cheek burned, my arms trembled, but I held Maya tighter, shielding her from the woman who had just struck me. "You don't get to tell me how to do my job," she hissed. For a moment, the room spun. My heart pounded with anger and disbelief. No one, not even in my weakest moment, had ever dared to humiliate me like that. And she had no idea who I really was. Because in 10 minutes, everything in this hospital was about to change. The sting of the slap lingered on my cheek, but the sound of Maya's soft cry pulled me back. I rocked her gently, whispering comfort, though inside, my blood boiled. The nurse didn't look ashamed. She looked satisfied, like she had put me in my place. She snatched the clipboard from the counter, scribbled something, and muttered, "People like you always exaggerate. If you can't handle being a mother, maybe you shouldn't have children." My throat tightened. Not from tears. I refused to cry in front of her, but from the sheer effort it took not to unleash what I was holding back. Another nurse entered the room, glanced at me, then whispered loudly, "What's wrong with her?" The first nurse smirked. "Just another drama queen. She should be grateful she even got a room here." Their laughter rang out, low and mean. They looked at me, not as a patient, not as a mother, but as less than human. I pressed Maya closer to my heart and stood. My voice was calm, almost too calm. "I need to speak with your supervisor." The first nurse barked a laugh. "Supervisor? Honey, you'll be lucky if we don't call security to escort you out." The second nurse added, "Go ahead, complain. No one's going to believe you." Their arrogance was almost surreal. They had no idea that every word, every insult, every act of cruelty was sealing their fate. I could have screamed. I could have broken down. But instead, I smiled faintly. The kind of smile they couldn't understand. Because in few minutes, when the truth of who I was came out, their laughter would die in their throats. And this hospital would never be the same again. I walked calmly toward the nurse's station, cradling Maya in my arms. Every step was deliberate, measured, because in that hospital, I wasn't just a mother. I was someone they should have feared. A group of staff members snickered as I approached. "Look who's trying to play hero," one whispered. "Think she can do anything?" I stopped and looked at them. My voice was quiet but carried the weight of authority. "Actually, yes." I can. Heads turned. Confused eyes followed me as I reached the receptionist and asked politely for the hospital administrator. The room grew tense. Whispers turned into nervous murmurs. It seemed no one expected me to be anything more than another patient, another helpless mother. Within minutes, the administrator arrived, his brow furrowed. He glanced at the nurses, then at me. "Is there a problem?" The first nurse, the one who slapped me, scoffed. "She's just being dramatic." "Nothing serious, sir," I set Maya on the counter, gently, holding her gaze. Then I said something that made every staff member freeze. "I don't think you understand who you're speaking to. I oversee this hospital's compliance audits. I have authority over staffing, operations, and disciplinary action. That slap you gave me? It's not just assault. It's insubordination to me, whether you realize it or not." A hush fell. The nurse's smug smirk vanished, replaced by panic. Others whispered among themselves, realizing they had crossed the wrong person. I took a deep breath, my hand resting on Maya. In 10 minutes, this entire staff will be accountable for their actions, and I assure you, no one will escape responsibility. The power shift was instantaneous. From helpless patient to enforcer of justice, the moment was mine. And they were about to learn that actions have consequences, fast and unforgiving. Minutes passed, but in a hospital, minutes feel like hours. The nurses shuffled nervously, glancing at one another, finally understanding that this wasn't a bluff. I picked up Maya and walked through the ward, each step measured, deliberate, like a judge walking into a courtroom. Whispers trailed behind me. "Is she serious? I think she really runs audits here." I returned to the nurse who had slapped me. Her eyes were wide, panic replacing the arrogance from earlier. She opened her mouth to speak, but I stopped her with a single calm statement. "You've assaulted a patient and violated hospital policy. That is unacceptable, and you will be held accountable." The administrator stepped forward, papers in hand. I had prepared for this. Evidence of previous complaints, staffing violations, and protocol breaches were ready. Each page I handed to him confirmed every word I had spoken. The room was silent except for the sound of my baby cooing softly. The nurses, once full of confidence, now looked like frightened children caught in a storm they didn't see coming. "Effective immediately," the administrator said, his voice steady. "The staff involved in misconduct will be suspended pending review. Further disciplinary action will follow." The nurse who had struck me sank into her chair, trembling. Others whispered apologies, but I ignored them. This wasn't about anger anymore. It was about justice, accountability, and showing that no one, regardless of their role, could abuse their power. I scooped Maya close. "This hospital will never tolerate this behavior again," I said softly, yet with authority. Every word was a promise, a lesson in respect and boundaries. The staff had learned a hard truth. Arrogance and cruelty have consequences, and sometimes those consequences arrive faster than anyone expects. By the time the administrator returned with the final paperwork, the room was tense and quiet. The staff who had once sneered and laughed now looked defeated, their confidence shattered. I held Maya close, her small face resting against my shoulder. Every staff member's eyes were on me, realizing too late that they had underestimated the wrong person. The administrator cleared his throat. After reviewing the complaints and incidents, and under the authority granted to this hospital's oversight procedures, I am issuing immediate termination for the staff involved in misconduct. This includes assault, policy violations, and failure to adhere to patient care standards. Gasps filled the room. The nurse who had slapped me lowered her head in disbelief, her previous arrogance replaced with fear. Others muttered apologies, but no words could undo the humiliation they had caused. I took a deep breath. Let this be a lesson. No patient, no matter who they are, should ever be treated with disrespect. And any further violations will be met with the same accountability. One by one, the offending staff members were escorted out. The atmosphere shifted from tense fear to solemn acknowledgement. Even those who had stayed silent during the attack now realized the importance of integrity and compassion in their roles. As I walked out of the ward, holding Maya's tiny hand, I felt an overwhelming sense of justice and relief. The hospital had been a place of humiliation for a brief, terrifying moment, but it was now a place where accountability prevailed. Outside, sunlight streamed through the windows. Maya cooed, and I smiled down at her. We're safe now, little one. No one can hurt us here. That day, the staff learned a lesson they wouldn't forget. Cruelty has consequences, and sometimes justice arrives faster than anyone expects. And for us, it was a reminder that courage, even in the quietest moments, can change everything. Thank you so much for watching this story till the end. I hope you enjoyed it and maybe even learned something from it. If you'd like to hear more stories like this, full of life lessons, drama, and emotions, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you'll never miss an update. Your support means the world, and it helps me keep bringing you more inspiring and unforgettable stories. Stay tuned because more amazing stories are on the way.